Last demo based on Little Women. This time I'm going to show you a visualization called a scatter plot. Let's take a look at it. Here I've already entered in the code and I'm showing you the results. You can see the code is at the top and at the bottom. The chart down there, the picture down there is called a scatter plot. What's this showing here? I've had the computer do some more counting for me. For each chapter, I had the computer count the length of the chapter. Think of it as like the number of characters, the number of letters in that chapter. And I also had the computer count for me for each chapter the number of periods in that chapter. Okay? And then I plotted that. So each dot that you can see on your screen represents a chapter. For instance, the dot right around here represents a chapter with about 300 periods and about 32,000 characters in it. Okay, so there's about 47 chapters in the book and there's about 47 dots on this plot. And what you might notice if you look at this plot is that you see the dots are kind of lined up. It looks like there's some kind of a line you could draw where most of the dots are pretty close to that line. Okay, so we call this a linear association because they look like they're kind of lined up close to a diagonal line. And there's a reason why that happens. In this case, there's a simple explanation for why you have that kind of association. The more periods a chapter has, the longer it has, longer it is. Why is that? Well, you can think of the number of periods as sort of like counting the number of sentences in the chapter. And in English writing, there's an average sentence length. So the more periods a chapter has, the more sentences it has, and the more sentences it has, the longer it is, the more letters it has. So it stands to reason that the more periods a chapter has, the longer it'll be. That just indicates something about this writer and the fact that they have a typical average sentence length that's pretty consistent from chapter to chapter. So you can see that it's not exactly a straight line, meaning that sometimes the chapter's a little bit longer than this would have you predict, or a little bit shorter than this would have you predict, but this gives you a pretty good ability to predict one of these quantities from the other. Okay, we call this a scatter plot because in this case, we have just a bunch of dots. They're not connected. Each dot represents one thing of interest, in this case, one chapter. We'll see these kind of visualizations again in the future through this course, where we'll be teaching you how to look at data and how to visualize it and how to spot patterns and trends. Like in this case, you saw the pattern that they seem lined up into a line, and then we're able to figure out an explanation for that. And you'll see that in other data sets where you can use visualizations to help you spot interesting patterns. All right, so that completes the demo with Little Women. Don't worry too much about the code you're seeing or understanding exactly what it does at this point. What we'll be doing in the next few weeks is teaching you step by step how to write this kind of code so that you could do this kind of analysis yourself. So I don't expect you to be able to understand it now, but within a few weeks, you will. See you next time.